Of course, the biggest discussion has to do with NYS. Big questions hang over minister. This is how the Daily Nation has decided to go with this story, putting the spotlight on CS Cecily Kariuki, now of health, but by last year she was still CS in charge of public service, under which NYS falls. What did she know? When did she know it? And what did she do about it? That's a question. Those are the questions the Daily Nation is asking. Cecily Kariuki, a respected manager, was parachuted in to clean up the mess left behind by Guru at NYS. She promised to seal all the looting loopholes, restore hope in the fight against corruption, and put in place structures to realize the president's vision. No more money meant for youth would be stolen by a few greedy people, she pledged. So what happened? That's a big question. The story is also on the Standard, page 10 of the Standard, where more questions are asked and probably more revelations. Search for Treasury's role in 9 billion shilling NYS scam. Investigators seek answers on who manipulated claims payment system. A report also on the same page, page 10 of the Standard, how weak NYS systems led to theft of billions. Listen to this. The state of affairs is revealed in a 2015 systems audit of NYS financial and procurement processes carried out by the ESCC. According to the report, there is a big loophole for fraud after the government pumped billions of shillings into the institution that must be spent within a year. Yes? Previously, the NYS budget was about 6 billion shillings. In the 2012-2013 financial year, that budget shot up to 22.8 billion. It rose again to almost 40 billion in the 2015-2016 financial year. Clearly, this is where the problem is. There's too much money, and of course, this is a low-lying fruit for anyone looking to steal. It almost looked like it looks like the NYS was designed as a looting paradise for a few people. It's like people actually designed it to ensure that yes, this will be our conduit for looting.
Fred, I'll tell you that for me, the National Youth Service Program was actually supposed to be the flagship program for the Jubilee. It is a project that had incredible impact, because I remember between 2014, 15 actually, until a year ago, the cohorts were reasonably engaged. Like in my constituency, I had about 1,500 youths that were receiving the stipends every end of the month, totaling to about between 10 and 12,000 shillings a month. And it had incredible impact at the grassroots level. But somehow National Youth Service has just turned out to be the cash cow that is astonishing, given the fact that the amount of money, even when we were told during Madam Governor Guru's time, the information was that the amount of money was stolen was about between 7 billion and something like that. The information out there is that actually much more money was stolen. For me, two things needs to be observed here. Money was given by the Treasury. This money was handed over to NYS headquarters. What actually happened from the time when the money was handed to the time when all these quote-unquote tenderpreneurs were able to be given, to siphon off the 8 billion shillings that we are talking about now? Number two, why is it that from previous investigations and from all that was done, you remember the cases were thrown out by the court, and the argument the court gave was that it is true, the evidence was not provided for, therefore you couldn't just go and railroad anybody to court and jail them. But the truth is, I think Kenyans are just tired about the amounts of money that is stolen from government departments. And I think somebody somewhere really needs to make sure that people become accountable.
But isn't that what we say every time, that yes, someone somewhere needs to do this, someone somewhere needs to do something? The Public Accounts Committee probed the previous NYS scandal when Guru was in charge. And it was televised live. It was beamed. It was a big spectacle. Up till now, no single person has been made to pay back anything, or rather, no one has been taken to court. No one has been convicted of that. Even the feeling this time round is that yes, we're going to go through the same thing. I've seen a headline where, of course, Parliament, the Public Accounts Committee will summon and probe all these people. But fact of the matter is, I'm not holding my breath that anything will happen to any of these people, even if they're found culpable.
Fortunately, this time, I am actually a member of that committee, Parliamentary Accounts Committee. But even before I go there, I have to say that, Fred, from what you have enumerated in terms of the budget hiking from 6 billion upwards, I have to say that the intentions were very good. Because if you read the master plan on what the NYS was to do, definitely it was a game changer. Unfortunately, it remained there in theory. Because I tend to think, even picking from where Mheshimiwa left, it was revolutionary in terms of offering jobs to many youth and engaging them, especially in Mashinani. Even in my constituency, I had like 900, who unfortunately some have never been paid up to date
Yes.
from the time the program ended. But I have to say, the biggest problem we have in this country is corruption. In fact, I am pleading with the president to include it in the big four. We better call them big five. And number one should actually be fight against corruption. Because everything else, especially the big four, is pegged on resources. And you cannot spend resources which are already in private pockets. You can only expend the money that is in the public coffers. And if people transfer this money from public coffers to their own personal use, then it's very unfortunate. But I have to say, like every other Kenyan, that I'm also disappointed with the way we fight corruption. And I'm saying this because I know political will is there. Every Kenyan in this country knows very well that our president has actually never been engaged in any corrupt activity. He has no scandal whatsoever from the time he started serving Kenyans in public offices. The political will is there, but the institutions that are mandated on fighting corruption, I tend to think they are very incoherent, because you have so many. You have ESCC on this side, who can only do up to this part. You have DPP on the other end, who can only do up to the other part. You have CID, who can only do up to the other part.
We also have
and
PSC.
Then you have judiciary. All these functions and their functionalities are so disjointed. And I tend to think because there are so many, we also provide leakages. In my opinion, we need to strengthen ESCC to have all powers from the time they start kuchuguza up to jailing. That should be the work of ESCC. And also we should have timelines. Just the same way we have timelines in terms of petitions, which we file, especially political petitions. We should also have strict timelines when it comes to corruption cases, probably not more than 3 months.
Okay. I've seen this headline on page 5, Public Service Ministry, NYS officials to appear before the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament. We've seen this before. Surely, aren't we just wasting time? Yes, when the first scandal at NYS was really investigated, if I may call it that, by the PSC, then chaired by Nicholas Gumbo. Yes, we beamed that live on TV. There was a lot of drama, a lot of exchanges. It amounted to nothing. Surely, what is PSC going to do different this time? You say you're a member of the PSC.
Yeah, I am a member of PSC, Public Accounts Committee, and we have actually summoned the accounting officer, who is the PS. And maybe on those bases, we may end up summoning even more. But I have to say the difference is this, Fred. You have PSC. PSC, of course, you are a watchdog insofar as public resources are concerned. And we also mandated to play the oversight role. But the prosecutorial roles, the roles of the person who have stolen, how that person will go to prison, does not rest on PSC. There is so much that we can do. And that is why I've just said, we need to put the other institutions, especially the 4 of them that I mentioned, into one roof, so that we can have these cases expedited, and we can also seal all the loopholes that happens from, especially from the prosecutor to the judiciary. On the other end, you have DCIO. On the other end, you have DPP. I tend to think these are too many institutions mandated to doing one thing. And this is a grave matter, Fred.
Forgive me for staying on the Public Accounts Committee for a while now, because you are members of Parliament and we have a member of the Public Accounts Committee here. But it is said that probably even the role of the Public Accounts Committee sometimes is a bit skewed because it tends, like in the last probe with regard to the NYS, that there are people who feel that it tended to sanitize some of those people accused of fraud, that eventually, at least in the public eye, they came out looking clean.
Freddie, let me say this. I have been in Parliament now for as long as the 10 years and more. The truth is, when you look at what has happened from the time when, let me say, I came to Parliament in 2008 until now, the issues which are brought to the House and those issues, the way they are discussed, the way they are interrogated, the way they are evaluated, is a sham. And the people who are the culprits, they know. Immediately such a matter comes up, normally they will look for, and my colleagues in the House have to forgive me for this. The truth is, you know how many times have allegations been made that money has exchanged hands out of the number of 15 members of the committee.
It's a rent-seeking avenue.
Exactly, that the 15 or 20 members of the committee that they are in that committee, half, if not three-quarters, because you need to get the numbers which are going to vote on the report when the report comes on the floor of the House. And everything is sanitized. It is true. I mean, there have been very few cases where when investigations are done, interrogation is done by the committee, the report that comes on the committee, where they will actually, where we as members of Parliament will zero in on exactly the issues, the amounts of money which have been stolen. Everything is always left in a gray area. And for me, what needs to be done is the president needs to organize himself, make sure he gets special courts that are going to deal with issues of corruption, create those courts, whether it's in some place in this country, make sure that there are special judges that deal with corruption issues, make sure that there are the rules which are going to guide the prosecution of such cases. I mean, you have cases where, it was in fact yesterday when I saw somebody who had stolen something like 8 million shillings, and the judge, I think the magistrate, ruled for this individual to pay, I think, 28 million shillings and be jailed for 4 years. That's a unique exception. And yet the amounts of money that are being pilfered in all sectors of this country are just incredible. And somebody needs to take responsibility. I don't think that I mean, President Uhuru just needs now to keep talking and saying corruption is a problem, and our senior Mzee Raila. I think we can't just be sending SMSs talking about how corruption is now the biggest problem in this country and something is. There needs to be action.
But from which direction? Because everyone here appears helpless. Last year, the president says he had done everything. Parliament, you're saying, and you are members of the National Assembly, you're saying, yes, this happens, and yes, this process tends to actually just sanitize the culprits. Surely, where do you leave Kenyans? What do we do about this?
Fred, the biggest tragedy we have in this country, and everyone knows that, is impunity. That you can actually go around Moi Avenue, where there are crowds of people and witnesses, shoot a person, you go to our courts, and they say they have no evidence. That is the tragedy that we have. Like in the last Parliamentary Accounts Committee, people came, confessed even of carrying money on gunny bags.
Yes.
But then when you go to the courts and through our judiciary, you come out and the judge says that
there was no evidence.
There was no evidence. What more evidence was needed? I think what we need to do, number one, and I'm saying this because on the backdrop of looking at how Kenya is, people no longer appeal to patriotism. You know the way you love your country, you do everything for your country for the love of it. I don't think there are anyone left who appeals to such. We can only appeal to punishment. And to punishment, what I mean is that we need to have a harsher, we need to confine, especially those who are who go through the judicial system and they come out guilty. We need to put them on harsher conditions.
Yes.
And Fred, I tend to think the gravity of the cases that we are seeing, especially the like 9 billion Kenya shillings, this is like taking away the entire budget of our healthcare. If one person murdering one person is prosecuted and they are found guilty of capital punishment, what about a person who actually steals the entire budget that could
for the
save,
medicines that will save,
for the medicines that we can take to our hospitals? Probably we need to put some threshold and put it on the category of capital punishment. We need to have life sentences, but even more.
But we were just talking here because look at it this way. Anyone who watched what happened, how the last scandal was handled by Parliament, by the DPP, by the ESCC, DCI, and all these people, including the judiciary, knows that nothing will happen to me, even if I steal a lot more this time round. And probably that even emboldened the people who are now going back. Because just watching the story by Jackie Maribe,
yes,
one company, one individual, 3 different companies, just changing the middle name. Yes? And that name keeps showing up in other multiple companies, still stealing from. These are not many people. It's just a few individuals who have decided, yes, nothing will happen to us. We just have to be clever enough and we'll steal 9 billion shillings from the country. Surely, don't you think that Parliament has let us down in that aspect? That, yes, last year, last time, you handled this and everyone thought, okay, fine, something will happen at least. Someone will get caught this time around. Nothing happened to them. You managed to embolden thieves.
No, it is true. The problem you have, for me, because I've been watching and looking at what is happening to our country, we must start becoming accountable. And the problem you have in this accountability that we are talking about is that year in, year out, money is being siphoned off government projects, money is being siphoned off parastatals in this government. You have incredible amounts of money. I mean, if you look at the reports that we have in Parliament, every single year, the total amount of money that is lost from the report on the Auditor General is about 420 billion.
Imagine.
Where does this 420 billion shillings go? I mean, this is money that private and entrepreneurs, individuals who have lined up certain government departments very skillfully go to the county government, Fred. I mean, the rot is from the top and you roll it, cascade it all down to the county government. I mean, you should sit and listen to...
It is a way of life.
It's a way of life. And the truth is, for me, I mean, let's be honest, the buck stops with the presidency of the Republic of Kenya. And President Uhuru must come. If it needs certain laws to be changed in Parliament, let him come. And if MPs refuse to pass those laws, then you can know where to start from. But the truth is, these things cannot go on. I mean, and it's not just the 9 billion at NYS. I mean, athletes go out for sports abroad, and the Kenyan government is supposed to sponsor. People eat the money. After the people have eaten the money, they come back and they're received at the airport. People are clapping, and the story ends there.
And nothing happens.
Kenyan football can't move. Why? Money is always eaten. Around the Stars, the kitty is stolen. The footballs, they are not bought. Individuals take flights to Europe or wherever the games are being played. They eat all the money. The players get nothing. I mean, something has to be done.
But who will do this? As he says, the buck stops at the presidency. As a presidency, do you think Uhuru Kenyatta will do something? As you said, he should probably include the fight against corruption as one of his main agenda, probably call it the Big Five, because definitely, and you can see the headline on the Daily Nation, this is one of his most crucial cabinet secretaries in charge of health this time around. Health is one of the Big Four.
Exactly.
And remember, she's one of the most beleaguered CSs. She's just come from threatened impeachment by members of the National Assembly. Now she is on the spotlight once again. Now she's in the health ministry, but she was in charge of the NYS when all these things happened. If she is affected by this, then eventually the Big Four goes down. The president definitely needs to step up and do something, don't you think?
Fred, my honest opinion is that if that was to happen, then we might need to change some bits of our laws. Because remember, nowadays the president, most of the time, the president has are tied. And in my personal opinion, we've seen even in other countries, when a country is faced with serious challenges, for example, if a country is faced with, let's say, agricultural or food challenges, the president can even, or the president can even take that role up to himself. He can even pronounce himself as in charge of agriculture itself. This country, when you are put at EACC, remember you are fighting people who are bigger than you, Fred. That is the honest opinion. And since there is no bigger person in a country than the president, I tend to think sometime when it comes to the fight against corruption, we need to make the president an emperor of some sort in that respect. because definitely he has all the instruments.
So he has no powers right now to fight corruption?
I can tell you there is nothing.
Doesn't allow him.
He has done maximum. He has stretched himself to the limits. What can the president do? He can't come to you and arrest you. He can't jail you. You have to go through a court process. And Fred, the fact of the matter is, you steal 9 billion, you just put aside 10%. That is to grease the entire system. Then in a matter of 1-2 years, you come out and the judge pronounces you as innocent and as clean as wool. So the issue is not the presidency. The issue is whether he has enough powers to do what he should.
Wow, Kenyans were in trouble. But someone else who could be in trouble is CS, Cecily Kariuki, because yes, this is the headline of on the front page of the Daily Nation. The spotlight is on her. Let's move away and discuss the CS a bit. Of course, the issue is she and the kind of role she's playing now. I'm not saying she's directly culpable for the fraud.
Fred, I'll help you. I'll help you, because the issues that we're having, every time such crimes take place, the person who should accept direct responsibility says, no. Let us look at the accounting officer. In this case, the accounting officer is the PS.
The PS, yeah.
And the one thing that the President of the Republic of Kenya, and especially in this era of this handshake thing, it has come to the point where now I think it is important, like if she is mentioned and she was the minister who was handling this matter, and there is any way at all that there is something that is associated and affiliated with her pertaining to this loss of this money, she needs to step aside. Allow the necessary government machinery to begin investigations and make sure that at least we have results whereby she can then be cleared, and then she continues working. The truth is, if you don't have zero tolerance to these things, it looks normal.
And don't you think that's probably where the president comes in? That the president should demand that once such a revelation is made,
Fred,
everyone in charge of that line should actually step aside.
The president has told his officers 1,001 times. We've seen the clips on TV where he says, you people, I know, I'm giving you these responsibilities, and whatever that is going to happen, if I find anything untoward coming out from your ministry, you'll be held responsible.
Fred, I'm sure you must have heard about this banality that we always propagate when there are such issues, that you are innocent until proven guilty. But the process of proving anyone guilty, Fred, is like going to the moon, especially when you have money.
And also with the current constitution.
And with the current constitution.
The threshold is...
But I'll take you back to the 80s. The story of Lee Kuan Yew. There was his minister who was in charge of housing, and they were having a housing project. And then this minister was caught to have been given some bribe. He tried to go, of course the ESCC then of Singapore tried to investigate him, and then the guy tried to get an appointment with the president. The president, Lee Kuan Yew, told him, clear your mess first with ESCC, equivalent, ESCC. The guy went through the process, and at the point of being declared guilty, he committed suicide because he could not face the embarrassment of having taken bribe. I think those are the kind of people you don't have in this country, where you even take your own life for the embarrassment. What do we do in this country? We celebrate people who steal. You can actually go and vie for governor when you're stealing a billion, and people will tell you when you shuja, and you're given a seat. I think to depart from that, we have to be very serious, drastic, and crude when it comes to dealing with people who steal the same money that should take our mothers and our fathers to hospital for free.
In the meantime, youth unemployment in Kenya skyrockets. NYS was supposed to actually remedy a lot of that. It's not happening.
Let's take up to now, in my constituency, for example, I don't know that has happened in your constituency. In my place, Kituru Church South, their cohorts who are supposed to have been paid money.
Last month they were not paid.
And Cecily came and said the money was actually in the accounts and their cohorts are going to be paid. Up to now, it's been, it's about 1.5 years. And these youths are owed about 34 million shillings.
Only.
And look at the amount of money that is being stolen.
Wow. It is indeed a sad state of affairs. That's a big story today. Even on Twitter, it is the top trending hashtag in Kenya today, what's happening at the NYS. We'll continue discussing that.